Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch, a weekly show amplifying the voices of the Virginia grassroots. Each week, we provide engaging conversations about politics, culture, and women making change. Produced by the unstoppable women of Network Nova, our motto is, when we vote, we win. The Friday Power Lunch is recorded before a live Zoom audience. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and show us some love and become a sponsor through Patreon. The Friday Power Lunch. Badass women getting things done.
So welcome. It is August 11th. Cannot believe it's the middle of August, and welcome to the Friday Power Lunch. Great to see everybody. This is the show bringing the guests, the issues, the action. We're amplifying the voice of the grassroots to get things done and to make politics fun. So let's do. And I'm glad to be here. I'm Catherine White, your host. And today our big theme, as we already kind of said, is understanding the impacts, the data centers, equality, and elections. And I would love to bring up to say a little hello to Stacey Stevenson, the CEO of Family Equality, talking about, you know, getting prepared, making impacts. How are you doing today? And this kind of what we've been seeing going on just across the nation. I mean, you must be always preparing for the impact on equality and families.
Yeah, I'm doing great. You know, I think my biggest concern right now is ensuring that we're ready. School starting on August 21st. That's that's where my head is. But what I'm teaching, you know, my 9-year-old twin are trying to talk school stuff and all the things they want to wear and all the new trends and everything. Absolutely, I'm always thinking about equality, and it's interesting. We have to become so nimble now because the political environment is so filled with changes and hate. Every day there's an attack, and every day there's something else going on. And so what Mike and I talk a lot about is being agile and nimble so we can be prepared for anything.
I love it. And I think that's great, the agile and nimble, because I felt like we've been through a lot of stuff in these 7 years of activism. And you're absolutely right. It's not like saying no or turning something down or whatever, or when bad things happen, freaking out. It's just figuring out, you know, about that and being agile and nimble. I like that. We're going to have to keep that in our vocabulary today. Well, we're looking forward to talking to you. We've been chasing you for a long time to get on the show, and I am so excited you're here today. So thank you. And yeah, getting those twins off to school, that's big. So good luck with that, right? All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited. We are talking about data centers. I'm going to set this up real quick to bring up Natalie Pien, the board of directors. She's on the board of directors at the Piedmont Environmental Council. She's at the board of directors, the Chesapeake Climate Action, and she's part of the coalition's environmental team as well. And also, she likes to say she's a grandma. Natalie, welcome for you being here. We also have ANN BENNETT, Sierra Club of Great Falls. She's the land use chair. And also we have Julie Bolthouse, director of land use from Piedmont Environmental Council here. So I'm so excited to have all of you on the show today. How are you doing, Natalie?
Oh, I'm doing great, Catherine. Thanks for such a great intro song, and the theme is so apropos. You don't know what you've got until it's gone. So that's what we're going to try to do today, is make sure that we do the right things so we protect our environment and we have a livable world for our children and grandchildren. Thanks.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you said you're a grandma and those impacts, like we talk about kids starting school. And ANN BENNETT, welcome. This is your first time Sierra Club. We love to see Sierra Club on the show. Tell us today what's on your mind when you think about, you know, us making these impacts, not only around data centers, but just even in your everyday life. What's going on with you?
Well, I mean, certainly when I got a master's in environmental policy, I never figured that I would be fighting data centers. I didn't know what the term meant. I certainly didn't think I would be fighting them next to national parks. So
yes,
Yeah, it's actually hard to fathom. This is not something that would ever happen out west to this extent, and to our great national parks. And we definitely face a unique threat here in the East, and specifically in Virginia. And
Yeah.
I'm just grateful that I get to work with these incredible women leading the way.
Yeah, it's awesome, and we've been hoping of this on, this subject on, and I'm gonna tell you why in a minute. But first, I want to say hi to Julie, Bolthouse, and Piedmont Environmental Council. Just a lot of street cred in general from the group you guys are in. So, how are you doing today, Julie? What is on the top of your mind when you're thinking about these impacts that are happening in this area?
Yeah, absolutely. It's my children. That's what's on the top of my mind. I also have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I worry that the world that we're going to be leaving them isn't as good as the world that I grew up in. And that's a shame. And I really want to see it be a better place, not a worse place for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that frame up, I'm glad that Stacey brought that up, her organization, the Family Equality, and it is really these impacts on the youth. And we do our work, it's something we're all thinking about, fighting for equality, fighting for the environment. And we saw that fire in Hawaii, right? I mean, it's devastating. And so it's so important, the work we do, especially when we talk about elections, which we will bring up today on our part of the show. So we're glad you guys are here. Thank you for being here. And we will get to your section in a little bit. And I can't wait to talk about that. So next up, well, usually next up means I'm going to say a little bit about the rules of the road. If you're new to the show, welcome. You're on the amazing Friday Power Lunch. Network Nova has started a media arm to get out the word across Virginia. And also we have friends from different states in here. And it's what we do is we love to spread information, good information, not misinformation. So please use our chat to discuss, share your events. Feel free to sort of put what you need there to tell other people what's happening. But we do ask you to be courteous and kind at the same time as you need to be informative. So thank you very much for that. And the after chat, very exciting today. Anybody that's been on the show, we like the after chat. This is where audience that are playing get unmute and we get to share some more and even further dive. Today though, it's going to be pretty special because like I said, we're down in Richmond for the biennial convention for the National Women's Political Caucus. A lot of fantastic women leaders are down here. I have Abigail Spanberger just walked past the other day today, and I saw people from Missouri, Tennessee, all over. So it's very exciting. So in their after chat, we'll be doing some live interviews with some of the folks that are at the convention. So stay tuned for that. And also, if you like what you see, become a supporter of the show. We have a Patreon system. It's like $5, $10, $25 a month. You support our work, and it's just so appreciated. I love to say, Wendy Jones, thank you. Wendy Jones just became our latest supporter. This really, really helps us keep the lights on, and we appreciate that. And our members, it's a great community to be on. So thank you to our patrons in the room. Most of them will have a background on. So when you are a patron, you do the background delivered to you every week. All right. So power chat. Fennell Norton. Let's do it. Let's talk about it. When I think about understanding the impacts, I'm thinking about elections right away because I'm thinking about Ohio. Let's talk about way to go, Ohio.
Yeah. I am really excited about Ohio. And I think what's really interesting is it was a 57-43% vote, which is pretty significant across the state that's mostly red. And I think that Ohio, like Wisconsin, they're giving us the playbook for what we need to do in Virginia. And I think the way that we talk about issues, like it was really issue one, vote no. And I think we have to think about how do we use the formulas that Ohio and Wisconsin and others have used to really talk about the issues. And that's why telling stories and making injustices public is really the key for us here in Virginia.
I think so too. I think what's on everybody's mind is what the freedoms we're losing. We talked about this last week with the library, the Save Samuels movement that is going on really close. I think a lot of people, I talk to my neighbors, they don't understand the attack on libraries. The librarians are leaving. We have a shortage of teachers, like Stacey mentioned. Are we ready on day one for school? Do some places have teachers? So the impacts of these, not only behaviors and policies of people that are like DeSantis, that are running on this very, very, fascist programming, is to really break down all these good institutions we've had, the bedrock of our democracy. These are having impacts.
Yeah, and I think to the point of the song, people don't realize it until it's gone. So, I mean, just think about it. Now, Romeo and Juliet is a book that's being pulled away. So I just think that's why we have to keep on talking about this, because people really don't know about these things until they're gone, and we have to talk about them before that.
That is perfectly, it is true. And they are, they were coming to Virginia, and I think what we were seeing Florida, and they just fired somebody, I'm forgetting her name, but she was elected to be the district attorney general, I think, and then they just DeSantis fired. This is really super beyond dangerous, what we're seeing going on with that, and those impacts, like you said, are huge, right?
Yeah, and this is the second one that he's fired, both Democrats, and he's replaced them with Republicans, which are not the person that the people chose. That is really big. And so that is another one of those things that we have to lift up to show people, what does a big dictator look like? And I think that's what that's
it's
showing.
True. And like Ohio, for me, when I'm from Ohio, and I look at that state, and I think what we see across the nation are a lot of people are trapped in these states, that the state legislature is being taken over by the Republicans. We know about the playbook to do that. And what happens when you let everybody vote? Guess what? They vote for policies for the majority, like abortion rights, voting rights, marriage equality. When you let people vote, and that's why they're looking to shut down the vote. So our job in this room is to get the messages out to the voters in Virginia. We do not want, and we have a really great opportunity not only to take back the majority, then prepare for the governorship. We really make sure that we can hold these policies we care about. So with that said, let's talk about the early vote real quick, and also our power packs, if you want to.
Sure. Well, yeah, so early voting starts September 22nd, and the goal is day one, get your vote done day one. But we'll take it all along. But I think that we can build some momentum and some excitement. It was really interesting. I saw a video just yesterday that they had this huge dance party at the polls on day one when they started to vote. I think we have to have some really fun, innovative ideas around early voting and day one.
Yeah, I love that idea. I know that would be really great. I know we did the polls before, so I hope people in this room start to plan now, because I know our coalition is planning the early vote campaign. Vote day one, vote early. But Luis had pointed out some places don't have that luxury, so we just got to make sure that people understand. And next week we will have Andrea Miller on, showing us some great tools that she's been making through Center for Common Ground about some of these electoral maps that she has put together. I'm so excited to look about what she is going to do for voters so they can find their voting location. So that's going to be pretty awesome. So I'm excited. Anything else about voting? Anything?
I wanted to say really quickly, when we're thinking about text messaging, what the data has demonstrated is that when you put the voting location in the text message, that is what helps young people, and that's what helps people get out to vote. So just sometimes that you can do extra in text messaging to help people get out to vote, especially early.
And I would say we have a lot of people in this room, and I would just really say that write articles for the newspaper. I really feel it's really time to get some really good articles in the newspaper around these issues, because we need to call out Glenn Youngkin. And I think we can't wait for somebody else to do it. It has to be people that are recognizing these harms that has happened. I mean, this is a governor who supports an indicted president for all the wrong reasons, even around the environment. He's pulled us out, or trying to pull us out of Reggie. He's pulled us out of Eric, which was the voter integrity. We know what we're dealing with here, but guess what? He's going to run for president, and we have to stop it here in Virginia. And so this is where we have this great opportunity. I keep saying it over and over again. So with that said, I know we have a big show, a lot to talk about, and these data centers, especially interest me. I got to tell a story real quick about that. Talk about voting. There was a really important vote for a supervisor out in Gainesville, and who won that election was all based on the data center. So we're finding that these things are very political also. And it's not just Republican, Democrat. This is like people don't want the data center. This person that won was totally just against it. And the Democrat that ran was totally a great candidate, talked a little bit about data centers, but more about education. The voters didn't give a shit. They were mad, and they don't want that data center. And I saw an election just won on that one issue. Yeah, so it's really, really interesting, and I can't wait to talk to the team about that. But it really shows us, when we talk about the impact on elections, impact on data centers, how this also impacts the vote. So what I want to bring up, Robin, if you will, we want to see if we have some people in the show today. We are looking for more people to join our show. We have such a great volunteer crew. We have so much fun. We meet a couple of days, days a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays around 11. It's not a lot of meeting time, but we would love to find somebody that's a little whiz at technology, especially around Zoom. And if you love editing videos and you want to learn, you know somewhat about it and want to help us do these great videos we do, especially when we put things up on YouTube, we definitely want to expand our team. We're at that point where we need bigger pants. Yeah, we do. We need more people. So we're also marketing. If you love marketing, this is where we need help. Marketing. We have a great show, but we need to get more people. So if you have a background in marketing, we love your help. And email Robin. She has her email in the chat, right?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I'm just going to say that this is one of my privileges. One of the things that I am so grateful for is being able to be part of this show, because I do believe that we're going to save the world. So that's just my thing. So if you want to save the world and be a hero, come and join this volunteer group and get to work.
Yeah, well, you know what I say? If you ran for office and you didn't win, you can, right? For now, this is where we grab.
Right.
Doesn't mean, but this is the great team to be on. If you're looking for something that you just a great crew of people to work together, but we love working on issues. And if you love thinking about guests to get on and you're really into that kind of stuff, yeah, join us. We would love to have you. So with that said, for now, Norton, it's your turn. I'm going to turn it over to you for your segment. And I'm really excited about this interview.
Steve.
So we're going to bring up
my
Stacey,
turn.
which is, I'm so excited. So we'll bring up Stacey.
Yep, Stacey, go. We'll bring her up. There. Okay.
There you go. There you are. Thank you, Stacey. Okay, thank you for hanging with us today. We really appreciate it. But there has been a chatter in the chat. They want to know about your twins. Are they girl twins, boy twins? Tell us about the twins. And what's the most popular thing for school?
They are boy twins. Their names are London and Duke. And their favorite thing right now is Pokemon and Pokemon shirts. And so they want to do all the Pokemon things and want the cards, and they want to watch the shows. But that's their most popular thing right now is Pokemon. Yeah.
Good. Now you have answered the question. Now we can get on to the less important things. Well, I am so excited to talk to you about family equality. So why don't you just take a few minutes and tell us about it and tell us how you got involved and turned out to be the CEO of Family Equality.
Sure. I have to say this really quick. I am a new Virginian, and so I am so happy to be in this space with you all. My wife and kids and I moved from Texas to DC last year, but just a month or so ago, we moved to McLean. So it's great to be in this space with you, fighting alongside of y'all, voting alongside of y'all. So really so happy about that. To make a really long story short, the way that I ended up at Family Equality is that I spent about 25 years in corporate America and in various leadership positions. And during the pandemic, I had this moment that I call COVID clarity. I think we all had COVID clarity because we were stuck in the house and it gave us a lot of time to think. And I started rethinking my entire life. And my wife was like, are you having some type of midlife crisis? I'm like, maybe. I don't know what's going on. I don't think I belong here in corporate anymore. I think that I should be doing something different. I think that I should be helping LGBTQ plus people in a more significant way. And I kid you not, now when I put that out there, about the same time Family Equality was looking for a new CEO. It's this weird universal thing happened, and I decided to apply. And they were not going to interview me because I was a corporate person. You don't have nonprofit experience, we're not going to interview you, but I was able to convince them. And 6 long months later, the long interview process, I became Family Equality's first Black CEO in their 44-year history. So that's how I ended up there.
Well, that is pretty amazing, because I think folks forget sometimes how the corporate experience does prepare you for the kind of role that for what you're doing right now.
Yes.
So with that in mind, I really want to know what are the big issues, and what do you believe that you are bringing to the table to help solve some of the things that you see are the most challenging right now?
Yeah. Well, here's what I'll say. I bring my lived experience to Family Equality. And here's the thing. Every American deserves the right to family. It's fundamental to our human experience. Every LGBTQ plus person who wants to become a parent deserves that right. That is not the reality in this country. That's not a reality. And when my wife and I were on our path to parenthood, we had just a number of hurdles, from adoption agencies rejecting us, from a fertility doctor rejecting us. That's the reality of what LGBTQ plus people often have to endure in this country. That is why Family Equality exists. We are a national nonprofit, and our role is to ensure that LGBTQ plus people can start families, can create families, can become parents without social, economic, and legal barriers. And we've been doing that work for 44 years. And we were started by a group of brave gay dads back in 1979 who were they were coming out of their marriages, and they were prevented to parent their children. And so they decided to just form this group. And 44 years later, we're still around. And unfortunately, 44 years later, we're still fighting some of the battles that they were fighting. So now when I think about what are the issues are ensuring that all people, especially LGBTQ plus people, can create families without barriers. That's truly why we exist.
Yeah, when we opened the show and you were talking to Catherine, you talked about being agile and nimble. And I think that we probably see that is being so necessary because things are happening on a dime. So can you talk a little bit about how that agility helps you guys be successful, and how do we use that to be even more supportive of this work?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the skills I think I bring from the corporate world, because things are very much so shifting all the time. There are acquisitions, mergers, etc. I think about the political climate now. As I mentioned earlier in the show, there are a number of attacks happening that are pretty consistent, but then there's all these new items that in areas that they are attacking, right? They're just throwing everything into the kitchen sink. And when I think about the number of anti-LGBTQ plus bills that we had in 2018, which is 2018, which is about under 100, versus now to almost 600, that is a huge, huge, huge increase, like 1,200% increase. So because of that, as an organization, and I think all LGBTQ plus organizations are having to pivot really quickly to ensure that we're serving our communities, to ensure that we can understand the attacks and then attack the attacks. So where that has actually helped us is that we've been able to get really, really focused and ensure that we understand kind of the pattern and consistency of the attacks, and really focus our policy work and our programmatic work on those particular things. Typically, we would say, well, that's we don't do that anymore. And we really can't do that. I mean, we have to evolve. That's the only way we're going to survive. So what I would say is that we need to have a mindset of evolution, because it's the only way that we're going to survive.
Yeah, and so one of the things that you do is partner with other organizations. Can we talk about that just a little bit? Some of the organizations that you partner with, other marginalized communities.
Sure,
what that looks. Yeah,
absolutely. One of the the projects that we have right now is called the Family Equity and Justice Project. And what the Family Equity and Justice Project is ensuring is that we understand the experiences of LGBTQ families who are majority BIPOC, who live in rural areas, who are at or below the poverty line. When we think about the work that we do with family equality, when we think about LGBTQ plus families, you don't always think of a African-American lesbian mother in Louisiana, rural Louisiana. You don't think of those things. So what we're doing as an organization is that we're ensuring that we are serving all LGBTQ plus families, all LGBTQ plus people. And through that project, we are partnering with organizations, research organizations, Black parenting organizations to ensure that we understand the community and that we are bringing other folks along with us.
Wow, that, you know, when you said that, it just sort of made me think about sometimes when you're out canvassing and you knock on a door and it's someone who's living really deep in poverty, and you know that the message that you have and the things that are happening isn't touching them the way that it needs to touch them. And so I'm really happy to hear you say that. It's probably something I'm going to come back and talk to you about, because that's one of the things that I feel the most ill prepared for sometimes is I'm not, and I just go, yeah, what I'm talking about, it hasn't touched you at all at this point, and we got to figure that out.
And what we're going to do is we're going to survey these folks. We're going to have focus groups. We're going to survey these folks, and then we're going to take that data that we get from them so we can build more inclusive, better programs. You know, many nonprofits, and this is not a criticism because we've done it too, we're focusing on our fancy galas. We're focusing on a specific donor pool. We're focusing on a specific, I think, demographic. We're forgetting the LGBTQ plus people who, many of them, thousands of them, live in red states and in rural areas. How do we ensure that we are not leaving them behind? And then when I think about how hard our lives are now, they are dealing with it like doubly, right? Like you know, than all of us. So we need to not leave them behind, especially in the fight that we're in now. We need to understand their experiences and ensure that they have the resources, that they understand their legal rights, and that we're building programmatic programs for them so they can actually thrive.
So I want to talk about two things quickly. I know my time is going away. And the first one is telling the story. And when I was on your website, there was information on telling our story. So can you talk about telling the story? And I want to also have you talk about the 60-year anniversary march and how we can be a part of that.
Oh, yeah. What I'll say is we just want to ensure that people are telling their stories. And so I would encourage it, if you are an LGBTQ plus person, LGBTQ plus parent, a person who has an LGBTQ plus child, tell your story. Telling our stories shifts narratives. And we consider ourselves narrative shifters at Family Equality. We will continue to shift the narrative for our family. So that's why we want folks to tell our stories. Now, the march. I am so excited about the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, which is on August 26th. And we will be there, Family Equality will be there marching alongside our other LGBTQ plus organizations who will also march. But, you know, there was this clear call from Reverend Al Sharpton that we have all people, that we have Black people, white people, the women's movement, the repro movement, the LGBTQ plus movement, that we all lock arms. And so now when I tell you that is my jam, that is how I think. If we don't all figure out that we have to lock arms, if we don't stop fighting different fights, if we don't understand that my fight is your fight and your fight is my fight, if we don't understand that, then they're going to wipe us all out. Like we have to understand that. And I get really passionate about that. But the march is on August 26th, and we were going to be marching arm in arm. And I think right now, in this day and age where we are, this is when we need to show up. And this is a moment that we can all show up.
Yeah, I love it. I have a quick question, Stacey. I'm interested, as I'm sitting here listening to, and it's been awesome, is that now you're in Virginia. Welcome. So great to have you. You're not far, so we definitely will have to get together. Yeah. The parental rights, you know, we know that Governor Youngkin, when he ran here in Virginia, this parental rights things, you know, took off, not responded to correctly or whatever, but it is a big issue in the sense of what you're talking about, whose parents' rights, right? Your parent, the kind of content that, you know, they're talking about at school. How are you, you know, messaging a storytelling around about, of course, parents have rights and every parent has a right to raise their children and all this stuff, but they seem to be leaving folks out of it that don't fit their sort of who's really a parent.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we want people to tell their stories, because we need LGBTQ plus parents to tell their stories so they can share their experiences. One of the things that I didn't say in our policy work, we are suing Ron DeSantis and the Department of Education of Florida over the Don't Say Gay bill. We're suing them along with some of our partners because it is unconstitutional. It's just wrong, right? And he said that he was not going to expand it, and then he expanded the law. We knew he was going to do that. But we need LGBTQ plus parents to tell their story because they are being mostly impacted. Our children are being mostly impacted where they cannot go to school and say, mommy and mommy had a great weekend, or daddy and daddy had a great weekend. That is absolutely ridiculous. And this cannot happen in Virginia. This cannot, he's, DeSantis is having a pissing match with Texas. Now we have what's going on in Virginia. We have to hold our governor here accountable. And that's why I'm glad I'm here. 30 days in, but I'm here.
That's why I'm excited about you're here, because I think we do need that pushback. And I've been telling people to write articles, to the paper about this. This is big because he does have an executive order that went in. It is impacting teachers now. It's impacting how they teach. People are either leaving their job or, you saw that in Florida. So I do think there is really major impact. So that is wonderful to have you here in this fight, because these are, conversations to have. Because I think what you have is when you talk about it to voters and you tell their story, they're very sympathetic or empathetic with this. I think it gets lost.
They are. And one thing I'll say is we know that 62 million voters prioritize LGBTQ plus issues when they're trying to think about who they're going to vote for. So we need to figure out how we engage and leverage that and tell these stories in the upcoming election, because I think people actually are empathetic to it, despite what we in the news.
Yeah, because we know Dick Cheney, his daughter, Liz Cheney, this brought out a discussion. There is a lot of, I think that's why they're going to more and more marginalize, going after some like transgender people, because I think that's something where people maybe have a little bit more confusing. We need to talk more about what that is, right?
That's exactly what's happening. We have these people who are kind of in the what we call the movable middle, right? That they know how they felt about LGBTQ plus issues, but they didn't know like now fatigue.
No, exactly.
And then they're putting all these false narratives out about what's going on with children and this gender and all these things that are incorrect. So we need to get the story out. And my peers at GLAAD did a research project, and we know that 30% of Americans, only 30% of Americans know someone who's trans. So there's an information gap that we need to fill.
No, and I think that's important to point out, right? For now, I mean, we know that most people really do support marriage equality. They understand this, but then I think they're just going so far out to something that is sometimes confusing to people, and they're not understanding it. So thank you, Stacey. And Fennell, any wrap up?
Yeah, I was just going to say how happy I am that Stacey is here in Virginia now. So hopefully we can all get together. But I also wanted to say this is a place where the narrative definitely needs shifting. And so I'm happy that we're going to get to lock arms together, because there's some good work with you.
Because it's shifting. It is about freedom. It is about acceptance. It is about love. It is about, this is a free country, and it shouldn't matter all these other things that they want to bring up, but that's why they're bringing it up, because they got nothing else to offer. And speaking of that, excited for the next segment, talking about the environment. Thank you, Stacey, so much. I am excited to transition over. I know a lot of people in the room are here to hear you speak about this as well. There's a lot of passion around this issue. Thank you, Natalie, for being here. Natalie Pien, Piedmont Environmental Council, Julie Bolthouse, the Piedmont Environmental Council. I know you guys have a lot of titles. We'll get you on here. Sometimes it flips around when people are on their phone, so we'll get you here. And then ANN BENNETT, Sierra Club. I know you ladies wear a lot of different hats in the environmental community. We're glad you're here. And what I want to do is we're going to have a nice and full conversation. I really want you guys to really just let your passion shine on this issue. This show is all about that. But I want to start first with Natalie, and then we will go around with different questions. But Natalie, let's just start at the very beginning. Let's data centers. Okay. What is a data center? And then we'll go into the, about why is there a problem? What is this data center? Tell us about it.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. I'm so glad that Anne, Julie, and I get to talk about data centers today. And so what a data center is, it's the thing that makes it possible for you to use your cell phone or your tablet to do things like send and read email, search the internet, stream a movie or music, and attend a webinar or Zoom meeting, just like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
So,
So we need this. So obviously, these are things that we do now all the time, right? So now, how do these things work? So where comes the problem? Isn't this kind of, tell us about that.
yeah, well, not only do we personally use these devices and the internet, governments and business centers use data centers as well in their day-to-day business. And all the computing power to do these activities, it's often said to be done in the cloud. But in reality, the cloud touches the ground in the form of large concrete buildings called data centers.
Mm-hmm.
And they store and share applications and data. Data centers are secure facilities supported by power and cooling systems, plus diesel backup generators. And the reason why we have the problem now is that data centers require so much energy, and there's been very little protective regulation. And so now we have so many data centers requiring so much energy. It's really threatening a lot of things that are important and vital to us. For example, we've got all these advances in technology like artificial intelligence, and I always get this wrong. What is that? GP? What is that?
GP.
So anyway,
Julie knows, she's smiling. So
GPT.
Okay, thank you. So that, yeah. So all these things, they require so much computing power and so much computing power in data centers. And, they're not really data centers aren't really well understood by regular citizens or even our elected officials. And as these elected officials are making data center development decisions every day.
Right.
And they don't know that data centers have serious negative impacts to our environment, historic resources, land use, economy, energy supply, environmental justice, and climate change.
Mm-hmm.
And so when decisions are being made, these impacts are not taken into account. And in fact, this past spring, there was a proposal to ignore air pollution permits to allow data centers to operate on 24/7 on highly polluting, human health harming diesel backup generators, because electrical energy could not be provided the data centers that had already been approved and in the ground. So Virginia, on top of hosting the greatest concentration of data centers in the world, it's known as Data Center Alley in Loudoun County, Virginia is also experiencing a deluge of data center applications.
Yes.
And unfortunately, both the state and Loudoun County have data center development incentive programs that involve tax exemptions and fast tracking. Local governments make decisions without sound guidance or the expertise to regulate this harmful yet necessary industry. So I'm so happy today that my colleagues Anne and Julie will describe some of the negative impacts, share what needs to be done, and let us know what we can do to address this huge issue.
Well, I live, I'm a biker, so I bike through Loudoun. And what I've noticed over years of my biking, it's turned into a bike path. And all I see is buildings. There's a little row of trees. So I think what I like what you said, Natalie, is that there's the disconnect also between what residents or regular citizens are seeing and understanding. Politicians, like you said, the money that's coming in that's very much alluring these public officials to want this tax money, want this money. and the residents looking at it and seeing all of a sudden the impact on them. So I want to go to ANN BENNETT, if I may. And we were talking about so we have all these problems. So in your mind, what policies and possible regulations are we looking at around to help mitigate the situation? Is that the basic answer here? Is there also education? But let's just start with policies and regs, if you want to take it from here.
Yeah, so I would say that we don't have all the answers. The problem is so big, and I'm sure Julie will address that we actually can't say, oh yeah, if you do A, B, and C, problem solved. I mean, this is the magnitude of the money, the energy, the carbon, and frankly, a lack of urgency is really hard to quantify. And if I have one message, is that, if folks can talk to their elected officials, both at the supervisory and state level, they don't understand it. There's a big learning curve here that we all can be part of. And yes, Catherine, you mentioned the election in Prince William County, certainly, a heads up about, how this is impacting local residents. But there are things that can be done. We happen to have a state system in place now that is providing huge incentives to bring this industry, Amazon at 35 billion, state incentives to site here, and of course the local governments then get the tax revenue. So we have this loop that really encourages this immense industrial development, whether we're prepared for it or not. So we're seeing it all over Northern Virginia. We're seeing it go down I-95 to, toward Henrico. And really, frankly, it's now a state threat on a number of levels that we really couldn't have anticipated. But we need what the local government can do is require the corporations to take responsibility for their impact. So at the local level, they can certainly, for sure through the rezoning process, mitigate, site impacts, require things, regulation of how they use water. These data centers use an incredible amount of water to cool the servers. And each building, they're getting bigger on average, they're getting taller on average. There's one proposed by Dulles Airport in Fairfax County that is proposed to be 110 feet tall near the airport. That's coming up. There is no transparency. We certainly want to know how much energy they're using. We want to know, we want them to move from diesel generators to renewables. Battery, nobody's requiring them to do them here in Virginia. So, that can be done. Right. We want noise and visual impacts mitigated because these industrial facilities run 24 hours a day, and people live near them. And increasingly, they will impact residential, hospitals, because the land is tight in Northern Virginia. There's no doubt about it. We need to capture the heat that is released from these, and we have to become highly sophisticated just in order to keep pace. Natalie mentioned artificial intelligence. That will require far more energy and far more cooling capacity. And in some of the more sophisticated companies like Google are working hard just to keep their efficiency at the same level, to do more processing, but keep efficiency at the same. So we're not making gains no matter what. And most companies, like the ones we deal with, Compass, QTS, they don't really have an incentive unless made to do it at the local level. So I talk to your electeds at both levels of government. That's the only way we're gonna even attempt. Yeah.
So I'll just interject around this because I agree. It seems like this has gotten way out there, and and now we're trying to address it. Right? There's so much what we're seeing. They're being built everywhere, more built, And like you said, now we're trying to really look at these policies and regulations right now. And just in what you're experiencing with the people that are elected, what kind of reception are you getting? Are they, I mean, when we have to go like speak to somebody about this, sometimes it's like, well, you know, all this money is really important for our schools. This is really important for this. And so I think obviously what is the reception on the policies and regulations? I mean, how long will this take? What are you thinking?
Well, I would say without state action, you know, to cover all of the localities as well, it's going to take a lot of work because it's application by application, county by county, city by city. So, you know, we really need a progressive, forward-thinking state energy policy, first to understand what we're dealing with, the magnitude. We just don't know that. And also then just to try to come up with a policy plan that will, you know, get clean energy. You know, we have concerns about any kind of energy. I mean, Sierra Club just responded to the State Corporation Commission,
right?
You know, their ominous prediction on the doubling of carbon emissions, which we are already seeing well documented at Loudoun and Prince William, and the fact that they're going to continue to use dirty fuels. That is a violation of state law, and certainly not in the interest of you know, the climate crisis. So yeah.
And so like you talked about this being both a local and a state issue, right?
Yeah.
Any more to add on that level, or just in general it is? Okay.
I think they need to understand the implications of the issues. I don't think they understand them. I know when we were working, and we continue to work in Prince William County, all three of us, on the huge digital gateway proposal next to the Manassas National Battlefield Park, we were not able to impact decision-making at all. None of the groups. And it was an enormous coalition. And then, of course, there was an impact, an election impact.
Because, you know, I think what we see is people, they can not even just go straight to it. They don't want it. They see it in their own impact of their life. They may not have all the details like you have, but I know when you listen to residents, they really have so many concerns about this, even though they understand it may impact how they use their, you know, these phones that we have on all this. So let's jump over. Thank you so much for that, Ann. I know there's so many questions in my head just about this. When we get into the energy part of it and those impacts, let's get into that, like, you know, the energy demand on this. And what on the back of my head, when I'm thinking about the pipeline, how long and many years and how many fights. And when we're relying on the people that are making these decisions, we're going right through another national park. So boy, we have a fight ahead of us. So tell me about this with the projected energy demand. Let's talk about that, Julie. What's the problem there?
Yeah, so what people don't really understand about the data center trends that we're seeing right now is that although the data centers are supporting everything that you do on your phone in this remote meeting and everything, the data centers that do that are already built right now. That's how we're able to do what we're doing right now, because they're already in existence, and no one's talking about tearing them down. The big push that we are seeing is more towards AI and data centers that are going to support things like driverless vehicles and 6G technology, and you know, the amount of energy that goes into a single chat GBT request is incredible. I mean, it is a lot of electricity that is used to feed that process and to train these AI systems. And so the scale and the magnitude of what we're talking about it's beyond anything that we've seen before in the utility world. So we're talking about a 23 gigawatt increase to our load right now in the Dominion territory. And what that is a doubling. That is a doubling. 23 gigawatts is similar to all the electricity used by New York City. I mean, just take that in for a second. And we're talking about building that by 2038 to accommodate this industry. And what does that mean for Virginians? What that means is new transmission lines. And it's not just in Loudoun and Prince William, although that's where we're seeing them right now, because that's the lines just to get to the single entities, the actual data centers that are requesting service. But you're going to see the feeder lines that have to get that energy. That's the massive lines. That's the big electric poles you see all over Pennsylvania and Maryland when you're driving north. Mm-hmm. We're talking about more of those going through national parks, going through natural resources, going through communities. And right now in front of the PJMQ, Dominion has put forward what they call their comprehensive solution. And in their comprehensive solution, they have a whole bunch of 500 kV and 230 kV, which is the big metal lines, going through Prince William and Loudoun County, but they also have lines going as far out into Maryland, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Delaware, and also lines going across places like Fauquier County, Hamilton, and Loudoun County, lines going down to Augusta, going further down. So basically, we're saying that we need to get massive amounts of energy to this load that we're creating in Northern Virginia and also into other places, because we're also putting data centers in rural areas. So what is the ramification? The ramification is not only all this electrical infrastructure, but also the impact on the ground of these facilities. As Ann was mentioning, they're getting larger. We're seeing campuses. So just for perspective, I follow data centers globally. In Virginia, we have 2 of the largest data center proposals ever seen on the globe. Wow. And they are right next to the Manassas National Battlefield, and that's Digital Gateway. There is no campus larger than that on the globe. We also have very large, 5 million square foot campuses in Culpeper County, in Spotsylvania County. And so we're starting to see these pop up, and people don't understand Virginia is already the data center hub of the world. And we're also growing at the fastest pace. So it's not like we're saying no to economic development. We have opened our doors wide here in Virginia. And at this point, we are compromising our air quality. We're compromising our climate goals. We're not going to be able to meet the Virginia Clean Economy Act because we have to keep fossil fuels online. We are compromising all of our recreational resources, our national parks. And for what? To continue to be the #1 leader on data center growth. I mean, there's no one even close to competing with us. The next one down is London. And London, it has not even half. It's less than half of what we have here in Virginia. No one's coming anywhere close to competing with what we have in Northern Virginia. So what we are asking is for our General Assembly to study this issue, get a better handle on what is going on. What is the impacts on the ratepayer? That's the other thing I didn't even mention. Who pays for all this infrastructure?
Who pays for it?
All of us. And the data center industry will argue, hey, we're ratepayers too, but we're not the ones getting the profit. You guys are. Right. So we need to make sure that we study what is the impact on the ratepayer, what is the impact on the climate, what is the impact on our environment, what is the impact on our parks, on our water, on our air quality, because all these generators, there are 4,000 diesel generators in Loudoun County, like a ticking time bomb, because I live in Leesburg, in my backyard. And I'm worried about that, and no one else is in our government, and that is very concerning to me. So we need to get a handle on it. We need to study it. We need to regulate it. We need to have some oversight besides just the localities, because the localities are only looking out for their own interests. They're trying to bring in the dollars. I understand that, but we need to be having some oversight of that. And then finally, we need to see a cost shift. We need to shift the cost over to the industry. Yes. We, the ratepayers, should not be paying for transmission lines and power generation to feed these data centers. They need to be paying for it.
No, I agree. I think that is like, boom. It's true. I mean, I think about the money and the land, the resources, and the trade-off. And once it's gone, right? Once these things are paved over, when I go out to Leesburg, I see the little remnants of the pond and the lilies and stuff that used to be there. And then going down to some areas, like, I don't know if I was down in kind of Prince William, also the marshlands, all that stuff. I went down there. I'm like, holy crap, what happened to this place? And it's like a weirdest neighborhood feel. There is no neighborhood feel. And I think residents are feeling it now. And hopefully we definitely will get to where we can slow this down and study it, because when we don't have the energy to run this, when we have rolling blackouts, it's going to be too late.
Yeah, and the rural counties around Loudoun and Prince William are starting to get upset because they're seeing the transmission line proposals coming through them. And I really do think our adjacent states are going to start to get upset too when Pennsylvania, Maryland, and West Virginia see the transmission lines that are going to be needed to feed our power needs here in Loudoun and Prince William. So it has an impact well beyond just the footprint of the data center.
Well, we're getting up to the hour, and I want to make sure we get Jean Rossi on. And when in the end, what can Virginians do? You did say speak to your state legislator, local people. Is if you can put more in the chat, but in general, people can stay in the after chat to talk to you a little bit more about this. But let's wrap this up, and please stick around. We're going to go. I want to make sure we get to Jean, the legal pundit, talk about the indictment. If you guys can stay with us, we'd love for you to come in the after chat and talk more about it. Thank you so much, Natalie and Julie. What a great, I could have talked probably another half an hour. There's so much going on with the data centers, but let's get to Jean. Jean, thank you for coming. Jean Rossi, our you're our favorite legal pundit of the Power Lunch. Good to see you, Jean. And thank you also for sponsoring the Women's Summit. On a little side note, investing in the right women is always good, and it's very smart. But you can make sure you're unmute yourself, Jean. Okay, get it. Come on.
There we go. Got it.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Jean.
I apologize for not making the summit. The great Diane and I had a conflict, but am I ready to go? Am I ready to go?
Yeah, I'm just saying to you, I know it's okay, but thank you for sponsoring. That was very important. I want to make sure we haven't really done a big segment. You know, we try to ignore the orange guy as much as we can, but we really, this is now getting hot, as we say, from looking at this, what Jack Smith has done. Let's give us a great summary of where you are when you're looking at this as a prosecutor, and what he's been doing, the protective order we just heard about, Fannie Willis, all this good stuff to talk about. Tell us, just give us a summary. Where are we at now? Finally,
where are we? Okay, folks. First off, if you want to call me with more with questions, 703-627-2856. 723-627-2856. I love talking about this stuff. I love it. And the reason is this.
Do you have people in the chat wanting to talk to you about this? I love it.
Yeah. So here's the thing.
Go ahead.
You can always call me after. I love it. I'm addicted to this stuff. And the reason is this. Trump has 4 battles that he's fighting right now. The Stormy Daniels battle. I represented Stormy Daniels' former attorney, not Avenatti, but the former attorney. I can say I met with the Southern District of New York several times, and I can't tell you a lot, but I can say that I know a hell of a lot about what Donald Trump did with Stormy Daniels, okay, and not just the allegation. So that's one case that's been indicted by Alvin Bragg in Manhattan. That's a state case. I don't know when the trial is going to occur, probably next year or probably 2025. That's the lowest hanging fruit, although he will be found guilty of filing false business returns. What he did is he tried to write off a $130,000 that he sent to Stormy, catch and kill, to keep her quiet. And he wrote that off, believe it or not, as a business expense. Only Donald Trump would do that. So that's one trial. Second trial is Judge Aileen Cannon in Fort Pierce Division of the Southern District of Florida U.S. Attorney's Office. That is set for trial in May, but Aileen Cannon is acting a little weird lately, even though she was reversed 3-0 by the 11th Circuit. She was embarrassed. I thought she was going to start acting like a real judge. She's kind of listening a little too much to Trump's attorneys. That trial will be 2025. What is it? He had in his possession, after they begged him for a year and a half, he had top secret SCI. I'm going to repeat that. Top secret SCI. It's the gold standard. You can't just hold that stuff, and you can't show it to people, which he did.
Right.
So That's going to trial. That's a slam dunk, frankly. He doesn't have any defense, none.
I know.
It's going to go to trial in May, but I predict Eileen Cannon is going to succumb to the shenanigans of Trump's attorneys, and she's going to kick it till after the election,
Right.
which is fine. And here's why it is fine. Tanya Chutkin, who has the current indictment,
Right.
she don't play nice. Let me repeat that. She don't play nice. She was a former public defender. She's got nerves of steel, and she's been on the bench. And what she's done with her people who've come before and got convicted by guilty plea or trial is she exceeded the guidelines. Okay? That's a big deal. I am intimately involved in this third indictment regarding why. I'm a defense attorney. I represent people. Okay. One of my clients. He was an oath keeper. He went to trial. He was a minnow. He wasn't even a minnow. He was an ant. He was 21 years old with ASD. Pitiful.
Right.
Pitiful. And he went to the rally, heard orange guy say fight 20 times.
Right.
Heard the orange guy say, I'm going to go with you to the Capitol. So he went to the Capitol. And he went on the east side. Now, folks, the west side's where all the violence was. The east side, right across from the Supreme Court, they kind of pushed a little bit. Nobody got hurt. And he went into the rotunda of the Columbia doors without permission. And the rest is history. He got convicted. I had a 6-week trial. I know the evidence in this case. And let me tell you this. In my opening and closing, I cut the private parts off of Donald Trump and said that he should be sitting in this courtroom.
Yes.
It didn't work. My guy was still convicted. My punchline is this. The jury will convict him in this case.
Yes, I agree.
So,
I'm going to say to you that when I saw that she'll be presiding over this case, is that the
was I too loud and passionate for you,
No,
Kathy?
it's okay. It's okay, because I love it because she is putting this case January 2nd, 2024. 2024. I'm like, that's great. And I'm glad that she's no nonsense. Let's
I'm out. What I predict is Eileen Cannon's going to kick her case and Chutkin's going to put her in May. And last comment is next week, get out your popcorn. Fonnie Willis doesn't take prisoners. RICO indictment against Donald Trump. I'm done.
Yeah, Fonnie Willis is going to go down in history as fuck around and find out. Fulton County DA, and that's what I'm going to say is she is going to make sure she follows. She is somebody that's upholding the law, and to me is a hero.
Catherine, I apologize for being too passionate, even for you.
Even I said the F word. I'm pretty passionate too. So thank you, Jean, for being here. We always like to have a little update, and the impacts of this have been great. I know a lot of us are so tired. When we talk about the 2 tiers of justice, I say to myself, it's rich people and poor people. That's the 2 tiers. Rich people get a lot of lawyers, and poor people like your friend or younger people that, just how it seems like with justice, they'll go to jail, and Trump needs to go to jail too. So that's it. All right. Thank you, Jean. And let's get to the end of the show. Talk about today, the data centers, the impacts of equality, the elections. Let's all feel good about Ohio. Ohio is the roadmap, like Fennell said. Next week, we are going to keep just really keeping ourselves focused on the Virginia elections. We will be talking about how to win state elections this week. We have a great lineup. You won't want to miss it. And we'll talk more about the power packs we've been talking about, which is how we're going to have a strategy to support the different candidates in different areas and work together to it. So again, if you like to support the show, become a patron. Thank you, Wendy Jones. I see you in the room from the union. Thank you, Wendy, great friend of the show and just wonderful supporter and the lover of democracy. Thank you, Wendy. Follow us on social media, and the recap will be coming out to you, to this team. It's awesome. If we want to run credits and go to the after chat, because I think we'll have some interviews from the National Women's Political Caucus. So thank you very much. Let's hit it, Robin.